A short but sweet 3-game homestand. The St. Louis Cardinals take 2 of 3 from the Milwaukee Brewers. Something about playing at home. I don't know, between the Cardinals and the Blues, maybe St. Louis sports teams should just petition to play only home games for the rest of the season. Maybe that would help. Katie and Bernie, back at you for a recap of the series. Happy Monday. Bernie, how are you?
I'm doing good. And, the Cardinals are what, 10-5 at home? The Blues have won 14 in a row at home. But I might point out that, at least the Blues are playing before packed houses. The Cardinals are getting about 25,000 per game. So I don't know why the Cardinals have a home field advantage with such small crowds, but they do.
They do. Maybe they can figure out a way to replicate some of that energy on the road. This will be a good test at Great American Small Park in Cincinnati for 4 days. But now it's becoming a trend. We're 1 month into the season, and it's like two completely different teams on the home versus road splits sense. But I thought it was a really strong series from the Cardinals. They fell on Sunday 7-1 in the series finale. But all in all, played good baseball. Just got to win series. And it was good for them to get back on track after another not so great road trip.
Well, that's right. And I'm all about that. Just win series. We all get greedy if we're fans of a certain team, when they have opportunities to sweep during the season. And if they let a 3 or 4 of those go by, and, it's frustrating, but if you can consistently win series, you're going to have a really good season. And I like that they won this series. I didn't like Sunday's clunker. It was pretty much not much to talk about. No offense, and Eric Fedde had a bad start. But they won the series, and what I liked about it is these were the kind of games that we're getting away from them on the road. I mean, they could have lost. They could have blown Friday's game. They almost messed up Saturday's game, but in each time they found a way to win. And so those tipping point moments in those games went their way. And I know we're going to talk about Nolan Arenado, who played a large role in that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where these Cardinals are at. And I had a stat today. They played 28 games. They're 12-16. That's ultimately what matters here. The record matters. 4 games under 500. It's not what you want. But in those 28 games, 18 of them have been decided by 3 runs or fewer. So we're back on track with last year's team of the slim margin for error and margin for victory. The difference between last year was that the Cardinals were able to win those 1-run, 2-run games. This year, not so much. A lot of that does have to do with the bullpen. But when you think about the style of games the Cardinals are playing right now, when every single game is a dogfight, we saw this last year, it can really take a toll on the bullpen. So I have a feeling those two things are correlated. You'd like to see a better offensive approach. You score a lot of runs, you don't have to worry about the holds or the saves or any of the late inning fiascos that we've actually come to expect with this club. So they played a lot of tight ball games. I don't hate their style of play. And I know, there's Ollie says this a lot, and it doesn't necessarily always land with the fan base, but they are playing competitive baseball. And yes, the standards in St. Louis should be a lot higher than that.
Right.
But, if they have 2 or 3 games where their lead isn't blown, all of a sudden you're much closer to 500 than you think. And as we wrap up April, which is crazy to think that we're wrapping up April, you're feeling a lot better about your club if they're around 500. That's why I think this next upcoming 4-game series on the road in Cincinnati is important, because you can kind of bridge that gap. There's a big difference in being 2 games under 500 in April and 4 games under 500 in April. So really important for the Cardinals to end the month with a good series win against a division opponent.
My overview of the Cardinals is pretty simple. I'm not getting too deep into the weeds here. I really like their starting pitching. I mean, I really do. I know Fedde was bad today, but I mean, we're talking about overall. The starting pitching's been really good. Libator, if you look at some of the underlying statistics, like, fielding independent ERA, strikeout walk ratio, things like that, he is statistically one of the best starting pitchers in the majors this year. He's averaging over 6 innings per start. He's been wonderful. And, but the whole rotation, even Miles Michaelis is on a good run. And, when you have good starting pitching, it opens up a lot of possibilities for success. And their defense is, as you know, and I think most fans know, really, really good. Really, there are no complaints there either. Really, really good. Base running's pretty okay. I'd still like to see him try to steal more bases. But the offense is, pardon the cliche, hit or miss. I don't really know what to expect. The consistency isn't there anymore. as it was real early in the season. And we all know that the bullpen's horrendous, and it probably will be a problem all season long. So don't you think that's like the simple but accurate kind of overview of the Cardinals so far?
Yeah, I would think so. And it's funny, I was actually talking to pitching coach Dusty Blake about the rotation today because they have been good, and I couldn't figure out why. And, they're notching a ton of quality starts, and that matters. Quality innings matters. They are keeping the ball in the ballpark. Miles Michaelis has not allowed a home run this year. That's how good they've been at keeping the ball in the park. And they're not walking a lot of guys. What they need to do to continue the sustainability is working on incorporating more swing and miss. And we've talked about this with rotation for years. What the Cardinals are doing right now in terms of their starting rotation is great because it's effective and it's getting results. But is it sustainable? Are all of these ground ball outs going to actually turn into ground ball outs? They did not today against Eric Fetty. And sure, that's an outlier, you can say, given how well the rotation has pitched this month. But the Cardinals need to up their strikeout rate, and they know that. Other than that, I'm completely on board with your synopsis of this team. Look, they're going to be inconsistent. We knew this. Is it going to be like maddening inconsistent sometimes? Sure. But when you look at where the club is, starting pitching seems to have locked it down. The offense missing some key bats, especially with Herrera. I did not expect Herrera's absence to really stifle this offense the way that it did. And the bullpen, they got to figure it out. So here we are recording this on April 27th. Cardinals will be 4 games under 500, like I said. It could be a lot worse. It could also be a lot better. And I think that's kind of just the theme of the season.
I want to ask you something because I tend to just look at this as, I'm not going to say an outlier, but I don't know that they're as bad as they look on the road, but their record says they're bad on the road. I don't know that they're as good as their home record says they are. But what I wanted to ask you is, being around the ballpark, talking to various people, I mean, does anyone have any theories as to why they are 10-5 at home and 2-11 on the road? Is there anything, or is this just early season noise that'll level off?
We talked about it with Ollie for a couple of days. He actually asked, he said, how many road games have you played? And I said, I don't know, but you've won 2 of them. And then he said, was that what I asked? So, but there are jokes and banter in the pregame session, and that was one of them. I felt like I got him pretty good. He didn't appreciate it, but I thought it was funny. No one can figure that out. And I think it might, and this is just me spitballing here, have something to do with managing the bullpen and the options you have, because it changes whether you're on the road versus whether you're at home and how you deploy your best relievers. So as the Cardinals kind of struggle through their inconsistency in the bullpen, I'm wondering if the game strategy and how they deploy their relievers and the relievers they have to be used, very important here, are kind of impacting the late games, because you see how they've lost most of their games on the road. It's been in the late innings. So I wonder if, in the 9th inning, you feel pretty good at home on Helsley in the 9th. Yeah, I know he blew the save on Saturday, but that's why you have a good teammate in Nolan Arenado to pick you up. But you can't, the way that you use your bullpen, your late inning guys, high leverage, it's different on the road versus at home, and you certainly have the advantage at home. And I think that might play into it. I
agree. There's no doubt. That's a good theory. And it seems like they're bullpen, and because of that, because they don't, because of Ollie's policy, he's going to save Helsley for he's going to keep him in reserve for like traditional save opportunities. That works against them on the road. So that's part of it. But I think just in general, that's what the bullpens have had their biggest blowups on the road. And it's probably related to what you just discussed, the fact of how they deploy their relievers. You do deploy them differently on the road than you do at home, to repeat what you said. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if that strategy changes. I don't think it will change with Helsley, but maybe with, Maton, Leahy, they tried to stay away from them for at least one of the 3 games, and they were able to do that. We'll see what O'Brien looks like. JoJo looks better today, so baby steps. We will see. I want to get into the series specifically. There's a roster move coming up, and I would like to talk a lot about Nolan Arenado because he just really had a great series. First, let's hear from Harry's.
If you want a razor that looks good, makes you look good, gets the shave done, and doesn't cost much,
Oh.
Is it nice?
That's a hairy John. And you can smell it too. Smell it, John. Smell it. Oh, wow. What
After
is that?
shave?
That's Harry's. That's the shave gel. I'm telling you, look. I mean,
you look scary, man.
It's the shot.
Fresh.
Now come in, get this.
I don't want to touch this head anymore. Oh, my God.
That looks like German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer.
I'm using the razor, and it does not. You can start to feel when it
Yeah.
gets dull. I mean, you guys only do like here and like up here.
True.
I'm doing acreage. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/foul for a $6 trial set.
That was a Foul Territory Network ad read if I've ever seen one. Great.
Perfect.
Great
Pretty
job.
much pretty much perfection. Digital perfection.
We love those guys. Just incredible work. All right, so minor transaction. Well, kind of not so minor. It is a big deal. The Cardinals they're going to call up Jose Barrero. Thomas JC will be optioned tomorrow. These moves are not yet official, but they will be on Monday. So Jose Barrero as a Rule 5 pick, he is now required to stay on the active roster for the remainder of the season or risk being returned to his parent club. Thomas JC going down. I have a feeling that's more of just a sense of playing time, right? The Cardinals have always operated this way. If you're a top prospect or a young guy that they think highly of, if there's not consistent playing time for you every day at the big league club, they're going to send you to Memphis where there is going to be that opportunity. And we saw with both Mason Wynn healthy, Nolan Gorman looks healthy. There just wasn't consistent playing time for JC up here. So I understand this. I think you'd rather have Jose Barrero ride the bench, and he's a versatile guy from the right side. He can play over the infield and can play the outfield as well. So that versatility helps as the 26th man. We will see JC at some point again this season. I thought he did a nice job serving in the last month or so here. Clearly some things in the game that he needs to continue learning, but that's the point of the process. What I do not know, and hopefully I will know by Monday morning, Jose Barrero will require a 40-man spot, and I'm not sure who that's going to be. The Cardinals have not yet said this either. No, as far as I can tell, no one is eligible to be transferred to the 60-day IL, so that means we're likely looking at a DFA situation. When I know more, so will you. But that's the roster transaction the Cardinals plan on making before their 4-game set in Cincinnati. Again, Jose Barrero up, Thomas JC down, and a corresponding 40-man roster move to follow. But let's get to the third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals, who had a heck of a series. Nolan Arenado saved the game on Friday with a defensive play that Ollie Marmol said only he can make, and I would agree. And then he won the game on Saturday with a walk-off home run, his 6th walk-off homer of his career. All around, I think we're seeing just a better version of Nolan Arenado on both sides of the ball. Offensively, the strikeout rate way down. He's striking out 6.4% of the time. That's in the 99th percentile of the sport. The thing about Nolan is he's always going to want to do better. So you're going to see an OPS just under 800, which is over 150 points up from where it was at this point last year. You're going to see the slugging up almost 150 points from where it was last year. And he's still going to tell you, yeah, but I could be a lot better. So I say this knowing that he's not satisfied, but let's point out the strides he's made offensively. Defense looks great. He looks like primetime Nolan Arenado. But the biggest change that I've seen from Nolan so far this season is his mindset. It's his mentality. And I asked him after the game, you seem to be playing with a more rejuvenated mindset. Do you feel that way? He said, absolutely. This is important. He said he was not in a good place last year. He said, I don't like talking about it. And then he laughed in a way that people laugh about their trauma, but you know that you're laughing to cover up the pain. That was that kind of laugh that he gave. And I think he deserves a ton of praise for how he's handled the first month of the season, really dating back to spring training, actually. Because when you think about the offseason trade saga, what didn't happen, what was said, that can sour a relationship between a player and an organization like that. And credit to both Nolan and the Cardinals, they did not let that happen. And he's come in here and he's just totally let everything go. And he's just focusing on being a better baseball player. And Bernie, we're seeing a better baseball player out of Nolan Arenado.
That was an excellent summation of him. It really was. And just from someone that, pours through the stats and, everything you said is right. I mean, there's a lot of really positive indicators, and his bat speed continues to be a good bit higher than it was last year. So all of his offseason work paid off. And I think that's great for a player's morale, an aging player's morale, when they really put everything into it in the offseason and they see that they're getting results because of it. That's good for his whole attitude, his whole morale. So anyway, but the thing that jumps out at me, the performance is one thing, and I know these two things are connected, but his body language is so much better. You can see that he's really having fun. He's really enjoying himself, even though, he's playing for a losing team. Yeah, he wants to do well. He will brood over his own failures, but I think he really enjoys this group of teammates. I think he kind of likes the youthfulness of it. I know of course he still loves, always will love Paul Goldschmidt, but I wondered how Arenado would take to not having Goldschmidt and having although we all overstate the whole youth of the Cardinals, there's a lot of these guys have still played quite a bit, even though they're young. But he's taken to that adjustment really well, not having Goldie and being surrounded by guys that are his juniors, so to speak. So those are all really positive things, and I hope he keeps it up, because you can tell it from a distance just watching on TV that when those guys see Nolan Arenado in a good mood and very upbeat and wanting to have some fun and wanting to let it sort of flaunt it a little bit like he did after hitting that home run yesterday, I think it fires the young guys up too. They love that. That's good for the team.
Spot on. Absolutely. Yeah. And you can see that with how they celebrated the walk-off. Look, obviously everyone's going to celebrate a walk-off homer, as you should, but I thought we saw such a display of emotion out of Nolan, and he's an intense guy, but he's also a very humble guy, the way that he plays the game. He's not super flashy. He doesn't really showboat. And not that he was doing either of those things as he was rounding the bases, but you saw that dugout. My favorite thing to do when I watch walk-off homers is to watch the dugout react to the ball off the bat. And that dugout lit up for him. Of course, Lars Nootbaar is the first guy out there pumping up his guy, but Mason Wynn, all about it. Brendan Donovan's right in the middle there. And you see Victor Scott all in. And it's cool to see the young guys kind of pick up their veteran. And Sonny Gray said it perfectly after the game. That was our guy saying, "I've got this, don't worry." And I thought that was perfect, because I don't think Nolan's had a lot of those moments where he felt like even though he's such an intense player, I think he always feels like he can do better in a situation. And in that situation, I mean, you could just feel like he was fired up for the team and they were fired up for him. But honestly, Bernie, what I liked even more was his reaction on Friday when he saved that game with one of the top 5 best defensive plays I've seen him make, probably top 3. Ground ball from Sal Frelick. Looks like it's going to be a short hop, slow roll at a shortstop, and maybe Mason Wynn can make the play if he charges and uses that arm. We have a bird's eye view at Busch Stadium in the press box, so I can see the whole field. Nolan came out of nowhere to me, because I'm only looking at Mason, and his body is taking him across the diamond to first base, and he fields the ball cleanly. Somehow, I don't even know how like a body moves like that or how an arm bends like that. Throws a dart to Pedro, who's in a perfect spot in front of home plate, to get Jackson Chourio, who's, he's no slow guy, right at the plate on a bang play. And he was so fired up about it. He fist pumped. He was yelling behind the mound. It was one of the most athletic things I've seen him do. And it did save the game, because it, preserves the tie there. That one to me was even more impressive than the walk-off homer, because it was like a vintage third base Nolan Arenado saying, "Don't worry, still got it. I'm still one of the best third basemen of this generation." Yeah, there's a lot of things outside my situation right now that I can't control, including which team I'm on. But I'm here to be a Cardinal, and I'm going to give it my best until I'm not. And I think he summed that up this weekend.
Well, he's embraced it. He's made a great transition to, pretty much expecting to go. And then that awkward, phone call in effect, like right before spring training, everyone, Mo's getting in touch with him. Marmol's getting in touch with him. It's a little awkward, and then we didn't think he was going to be here. He's handled it beautifully from the day he reported to spring training. He could not have handled this any better, and I really respect him for that. My hope, though, is, listen, there will be times where his patience and his morale is challenged, because every player goes through that. And I just hope he can keep the positive vibes going and not get too down, not revert to kind of the bad body language guy, and that's going to be a real test for him, a real challenge. But I think he seems much better prepared to handle that now. And I really hope that that's true.
I would agree there. And he's talked about it, where he just said, like last year, a great question by John Denton on that pitch from Trevor Megill, high and inside, 98 in on hands. John asked if that's a pitch that Nolan can get to. And he was like, no, probably not. Like, absolutely not, thinking about what I was doing last year and where I was at. And then he said, mentally that also plays a part. He's like, mentally, I feel great. And Ollie Marmol said that's absolutely helping him on both sides of the ball. And I tend to agree. I I don't know what Nolan Arenado's future is. I don't know how much longer he'll be a Cardinal. I think a lot of that depends on where the team is at come July, but we can't predict that. It's only April. So for now, Cardinals fans, enjoy him while you have him. You could have him for another season. You could have him for a couple months. You could have him for the duration of his contract. We don't know. But right now, it's nice to see a healthy and happy Nolan Arenado playing third base for the St. Louis Cardinals.
And I think real quick, I think the fans did a lot to foster this great feeling that Arenado has, just the way the reception he got on the opening day of March 27th at Busch Stadium was really special, and he was clearly moved by it. And I think that just set him. He was already in a good place emotionally, and in terms of his happiness, he was in a really good place. But that just made it even better. And I think, I don't know if he had got some kind of mixed reaction on opening day, there would have been, first of all, there's no reason to do that. But if he had gotten a mixed reaction or kind of a flat reaction, listen, I'm not saying I think he would have gone in the tank, not at all. But this helped propel him even more, because his emotions are a big part of what he does on the field. His emotions really can influence how he plays. So the fans deserve a lot of credit for getting behind him and letting him know with 100% certainty they loved him and they're glad he was still here.
And he spoke to that on opening day after he hit that go-ahead home run or insurance run home run in the 8th. He said, I was not expecting that from the fans, and I just really had to take it in, coming off on the Ford trucks across the warning track. That was when he got his first ovation. He got an ovation when he was announced. He got his ovation his first at bat, and then he gets a curtain call, and you could just see that it means a lot for him to say, okay, look, I have not been my best self in the last 2 seasons. We have disappointed a lot of the fan base dating back to that 2022 wild card series. And he and Goldschmidt still feel so responsible for that. But for him to have that reaction from the fans and say, look, I really want to try and be my best while I'm still here, I think that said a lot for him as well. So
That's right.
But on, as always, Bernie, speaking of the Cardinals, did you know that you can now stream them on FanDuel Sports Network? Let's hear from him. Still, that song is still going to haunt me. Not over it yet.
I like it.
You like it?
I kind of like it.
I'm trying to think if there are any
It fits the animation and the way they have all the cuts.
It does fit the animation. I like the Chicken Brad cameo. Do you have a favorite end of where the Cardinals don't do this, and they should? Separate tangent. Do you have a favorite thing that a team does when they win a game? After game, a favorite song? Because mine's not popular. I don't want to say it on the show. I'm scared to say it on the show.
I'm stumped. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm stumped.
I like Go Cubs Go. I'm not saying I like hearing it.
Oh boy, here you go.
I'm just saying I like that the Cubs have something that their entire stadium gets behind when they win. The Dodgers do this with I Love LA. The Yankees do this, San Francisco. So we need to get the Cardinals on board.
Now that you mention it, I spent so many nights and days in LA covering Cardinals, Dodgers. I'm glad you brought it up, because now that you were helping me with my memory, I think I Love LA is perfect. I think it's perfect.
I've heard it a lot for these Cardinals Dodgers games.
Yeah.
I've heard it a lot because the Dodgers always win, but I really like the environment and the vibe that it brings too.
Yeah, I mean, when they had that fundraiser after the just horrendous fires in LA, and the band, gosh, what band was that? Was it Dawes? I can't remember now. And that's awful that I can't remember the name of the band, but they're an LA band, and they led off that fundraising show, which was a huge success. They led off the show with I Love LA, their rendition. And it was awesome. And I almost got a little choked up. See, I do that kind of stuff. I'm like, and St. Louis fans will know who I'm talking about. Of course, I'm kind of like Dick Vermeil, the old Rams coach. He would you'd see him just kind of rubbing his eyes over everything. I get like that. And I tell you what, that's a great song. It's a great song. Maybe not, for non-LA people, it's probably, more challenging to like. But I mean, I think it just captures that whole city very well.
I agree. And that's what I think the Cardinals need to get behind. I mean, bust some
Meet
Nelly
me
out
in
after a
St.
win.
Louis,
Yeah, that one.
meet
Bust out some
me at
Nelly.
the
Take your pick. Like, come
what,
on.
what they got to do is get like sort of a hard rock or punk version of that song.
Of
And
which
just
one?
rip it up. Meet me in St. Louis. Just go real fast,
Okay, look,
Yeah.
anything is better than nothing. And right now,
Yeah.
they like the fireworks and the 3 cannons, which are so loud, by the way. It's been 5 years and they scare me every single time. But I don't know.
Something from Chuck Berry, something from Nelly.
Something.
Right?
Bush Stadium, if you're listening, figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
There's many other local artists we could name, but I digress.
I have some options. I don't think the good people at Bush Stadium would like Sexy Red, but she is local.
I do know who she is, believe it or not. 66-year-old man. I do.
Proud
I
of
do.
you. All right, Bernie, let's hear from scouting report from FanDuel Sports Network. This stat right here, I'm going off your playbook. I'm going to get you with some numbers. These stats are courtesy of Cardinals PR wizard Michael Whitty. Getting defensive. The Cardinals lead Major League Baseball coming into play on Sunday in outs above average at 17, runs prevented 14, and FanGraphs defensive runs above average at 9.4. They also rank third in defensive runs saved with 15, and they're tied for third in fielding percentage at 9.89 and fifth in ground ball out percentage, 77.6. Bernie, you talked about the defense earlier in the show. I'm so glad you did. This Cardinals defense is a lockdown. They're playing some really good baseball. There's going to be some growing pains, of course, with a little bit of the younger guys, but take your pick across the diamond. We talked about Nolan. Contreras looks great at first. Burleson's played a great first base too. The outfield across the board, Victor Scott the second, Jordan Walker making strides, Lars Nootbaar also making strides. I like what we're seeing defensively out of this Cardinals club.
No, that's right. And I love all the metrics and I'm into them, but there's sort of I hate to say it's an old fashioned stat, but it's not quite as new as some of the metrics are they're very much in vogue now. But at Baseball Reference, there's a thing called defensive efficiency. And it's a really simple calculation. It's like, okay, how many of the balls put into play do you convert into outs, right? I mean, that's about as basic as it gets, but yet it tells you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cardinals, I think this was going into the Milwaukee series, and there's nothing that would have changed it. They were either third or fourth in defensive efficiency, where they were getting to something like 72% of the balls in play, they were converting in outs. That's really good. So so I only bring it up because it fits all of the other things you talked about. It fits right in there with that.
Yeah, and we talked about the starting pitching staff. They're ground ball heavy. I mean, Sonny Gray has some swing and miss, but the rest of them pretty ground ball heavy. So it's important that you have a defense that can convert those ground ball outs. Is this an outdated method in terms of pitching? Yes. But that's what the Cardinals have right now. And when you have a lockdown defense, it certainly allows things to be a lot better. I think, Pedro Pages has done a really nice job defensively behind the plate. The bat's coming around. But really, you think about the work that Stubby Clapp does with positioning, and you think about the work John Jay does and making sure that these guys are ready to go with situations and the extra work both people are putting in. I was talking to Ollie Marmol about the coaches and why he thinks the defense is better, and he would not stop crediting Stubby Clapp and John Jay for their work. Stubby behind the scenes in terms of studying charts, all of that, and Jay going out there. He's with the outfielders every day. You see it with Victor, you see it with Jordan, and you are also seeing it with Lars. And it's not like Lars was not a good outfielder to begin with, but he's just getting that much better. That's what I'm looking at when I'm evaluating the early season is, are guys taking steps forward? I already think we're seeing a much better version of Jordan Walker in right field. Victor Scott the second, and he's worth the price of admission right now. Whether it's, I know he's having a hard time hitting lefties right now, but what he's doing on the field, when he gets on base, a perfect 9 for 9 in stolen base attempts, that kind of stuff is fun to watch. So shout out to John Jay for the work that he's putting in with those outfielders. I think the defense across the board looks really good.
I'm glad you mentioned positioning of the fielders, and I think that's really important. In 2023, when the Cardinals were just awful, they were embarrassing defensively as a team. Some guys were good, but they were embarrassing. It was one of the things that drove me crazy about them that year. Their base running was terrible. I mean, they just fundamentally, they were a wreck, and there was no need for that. I used to give Ollie Marmol so much crap in all of my writing and sports talk, just saying, Ollie, come on, man, clean this stuff up. And one of my friends in the business, I can't tell you who he works for, but he's a really good analytics guy for another team. And he said, I saw what you said. And he said, you ought to you ought to look at how they're positioning their fielders because they have no idea what they're doing. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm not going to read you the thing. Just take my word for it. They have no idea what they're doing when they position their fielders. And sure enough, big time defensive improvement in 2024. And that's carried through to this year. And I checked with my friend. I also checked at Sports Info Solutions, some of their data. And the Cardinals, the last 2 seasons, have done a really good job of positioning their fielders. I don't know why it took them so long, but they finally realized, well, we're being kind of dumb here. Maybe we ought to position them better. It's amazing to me how many balls are hit directly to where the Cardinals are in some kind of, I wouldn't call it an overshift, but it's a definite shift. And it's like it's right to Mason Wynn when he's like close to second base, things like that. So they're doing a really good job. A lot of it is the players, of course, but a lot of it, as you said, is the teaching and the instruction to make individual guys better. And a lot of it also has to do with them being a lot smarter about where they set their fielders up from batter to batter.
So I have an answer for you on what changed with the positioning. Prior to the 2023 season beginning, Major League Baseball banned the shift.
Right.
And the Cardinals were one of the best teams in baseball at positioning when you're allowed to shift. I mean, that's why they were such a good defensive club. They had good defensive players, of course, but where they were on the field mattered, and then they had the athletic ability to make the play. And I remember going in, right?
Yeah, they didn't know how to adjust once the shift was outlawed, though.
And I was talking to a couple people and spring training in 2023, and I said, are you concerned about the shift and how it's going to impact your positioning? And I was told I was making a big deal out of nothing. And I was like, are you sure? Because in 2023, surprise, they had another ground ball heavy staff. And I was like, your pitchers are on the ground a lot. You can no longer shift the way that you could. And you guys are really good at that. And I basically was like, when I say this, they weren't dismissive by any means. I'm just glad to have a relationship with pretty much everyone in the organization where you can talk shit and go back and forth is essentially what it was.
That's what you need to.
They were like, no, we'll be fine. And then I was gaslit per usual by the St. Louis Cardinals. Halfway through the season, we were talking about how the shift has impacted their ability to position players. And I just had to sit there and wear it like I wasn't seething. Like I asked about this, but I think it just goes into across the board. When you are an organization that is used to doing things a certain way, you don't really understand how much that change is needed. And we've seen this with the Cardinals a lot. Credit to Stubby Clapp, works his ass off. I come in to the game every day and he's in his little room, computers up, monitors up, and he's making sure those guys are prepared for every single play. So yeah, positioning wasn't good in 23, much better in 24, and really paying dividends in 25.
And if I could add to that, the other thing is, one of the things about John Mozeliak's regime towards the end in the previous seasons that really was unfortunate is that their analytics department, which used to be one of the largest in the majors, became one of the smallest in the majors and very underfunded. And my point being, there's a lot of fans, including some, I'm sure, watching us who hate when you mention analytics. It's like the dirtiest, most obscene word in their baseball lexicon. They want to like perform an exorcism on anybody who mentions or praises analytics. And I never understood that because, for example, the smart defensive positioning that we're seeing is analytics based. Analytics are not your enemy, my friends. They're not the Cardinals' enemy. If the Cardinals tap into the right information and put it to use, analytics are their friend.
Exactly.
But in the past, we've seen them be really, really stupid about how they I'm serious about how they implement analytics. So that leads fans to say, see, this analytics stuff's a bunch of garbage. No, it's not. It depends on who's using the information, if they understand it, and then are they implementing it wisely? If they are, you have an advantage.
And I think we're seeing that more and more. And I caution you, my best fans in baseball, analytics is just another word for information. Ollie Marmol says this a lot, and I get it. Analytics can be a scary word. All it means is more information. So if you, by the way, need more information on how you can stream the Cardinals on FanDuel Sports Network, I'm your girl. I got you. You can now stream the St. Louis Cardinals through FanDuel Sports Network. And if you use the promo code baseball30, you can start it off with a 30-day extended free trial at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. This deal expires May 2nd, 2025. $19.99 a month after your free trial. Cancel during your free trial to avoid charges. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit FanDuelSportsNetwork.com for details. That was one of my better transitions, I will say.
I was going to say, man, look at the segue queen right there. My goodness, what a pro!
This is what happens when you prioritize development and giving people chances to succeed in real time and learn from their mistakes. They get better.
Yeah, do they have an analytics department at the?
Actually, we do. That was basically our wonderful producers telling me to be better, and I agree. Be better.
No, it's great. The whole foul territory, Cardinal territory, all the other team territories. What a nice network for fans. It really is.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I'm thankful to be a part of it. So shout out our foul territory guys. Look, another week in the books. The Cardinals head on to Cincinnati. They're there already. I'm not going to Cincinnati. I just did 28 straight games in a row. Remind me to never do that again. So I am off this series in Cincy. We'll still have some content for you here on Cardinal Territory and, of course, at The Athletic.
So what is it? Is it you don't like staying up all night, getting blotto across the river in Newport, Kentucky? Is it that? Is it you really you just don't dig the Cincinnati style chili?
I do not. I'm not a Skyline chili girl.
Yeah.
Huh. I will say that they have good ice cream, but
yeah,
I saw 4 days in the middle of the month or in the middle of the week where they were going to be home. It was an ideal time for me to take off because I have not, as I like to tell Chip Carey, I've done more games than you have because he is supposed to do all 162 this year. And of course, you lose a couple for national games. So the Cardinals had a Fox game, so he lost one. And I was being so insufferable in the hallway in the clubhouse saying, I have done every game. I'm the only media person who's done every single game except for John Rooney. So John Rooney and I holding it down. But that streak ends for me on Monday. Yeah. And I'll be back with the team this weekend. So.
And then are you going to be making that trip to DC, Philly, and Kansas City after the homestand? The next
I'm a sucker for pain, so I'm doing the whole 3-city road trip. So.
I actually think those are 3 good cities to go to.
Okay. Yeah. So I love DC because I like the history. I like walking around. We do hot girl walks, the broadcasters and I. So we'll probably walk around the Washington Mall. I've never done Philly. Philly's my last National League city.
Love
and
Philly.
Kansas City, always a good time. I've never gone to Kansas City and had a bad time. Even when I got food poisoning, how much fun that I had before that made up for the fact that I got food poisoning.
No, that's a good road trip. That really is. That's a good road trip for Scraps too. So yeah, yes, no doubt.
Road trip all around. Bernie, before we go, I know that you have been working on some things, some sad news for the Cardinals. Walt Jocketty died at the age of 74 over the weekend, an architect of the team. Just so influential in so many ways for the game of baseball.
Just a couple things real quick. And I really thank you for giving me a chance to promote this. I'm proud of who I work for now, which is sportshubstl.com. As soon as the word came out about Walt's passing, Dave Green, my friend and my boss, he got on the text messages and started saying, hey, we're going to do a live stream in reaction to this. No one else is going to do this. We're going to do it because we should do it. And I hosted it, and Mike Claiborne was my guest for about a half an hour. And then I continued for another 20 minutes with some of my personal thoughts on Walt. I'm probably not going to do a separate video on that, but people can they can find it really easily if you're interested, by going to sportshubstl.com. And then the other thing, I've been working all day. And by the way, I'm not looking for any attaboys, but I've been working all day on basically what amounts to a retrospective tribute to Walt Jocketty, because I followed him so closely the whole time he was here. I knew all the ins and outs. I have some stories. So this thing's massive, and I'm warning people because my whole thing, as I told you before we went on, if I'm going to pay tribute to Walt Jocketty's impact on this franchise, I ain't holding back. I'm just going to write and write and write and write and write. And I do break it into categories, but I'm just about finished with that. I'll probably finish it up tomorrow morning, but I'm proud of it, not because I'm proud, like, look at me, but I'm proud of it because anything that honors Walt Jocketty, whoever does it should be proud, just for the act of honoring him. And can I say one more thing? I'm on that Cardinals Red Ribbon Committee, and we learned on the committee, and we're basically it's 100% confidential, and we all know that. Those are the ground rules. We can't really discuss anything outside that room. That's just, and I honor that. You have to honor that. or if you don't want to honor it, then you shouldn't be on the committee. But we were told, that that day in January after the winter warm-up that the DeWitts were going to put Walt Jocketty into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And, again, we all can't say a word about it. And I understand. But Tony La Russa also told us that day, and I don't mind sharing this, and Tony wouldn't mind. He told us that day that Walt was in bad shape. And I went, oh my goodness. And it sounded really dire. And as it turned out, it was dire. So it's one of those things. I mean, I was really saddened by his loss because I love covering Walt Jocketty and the teams he built. But also I was frustrated because he wasn't in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And I thought it was a tremendous oversight. But Bill DeWitt and Bill DeWitt III, they realized that, and they were going to do something about it. They didn't know how ill Walt Jocketty was. They didn't, even though Bill DeWitt Jr. and Walt Jocketty had definitely repaired their relationship. They were on good terms because Walt had a health scare a couple years ago and he came out of it. So they didn't really know. They didn't have the play-by-play of what was going wrong with him. So I was so happy to hear this would be the year because I've been lobbying for it hard. But then you're heartbroken to realize that, he won't be able to, stand there and get the red jacket and have everyone just wash over him with praise and thanks and gratitude, and all those former players coming back. Our mutual friend, Derek Gould, had a line in something he wrote today where he said, the Cardinals did call Walt. I assume it was the DeWitts before, when he was in the hospital earlier this year, and they let him know that he was going to be in.
Great.
And Tony La Russa told me that Walt was really, really, really happy, and it was great for his morale. And Walt was so fired up to get the news. He's laying in a hospital. He's in a hospital or a special care center for about a year. And that motivated him so much that dear person sat in his hospital bed and started to write his acceptance speech. That's enough to make you cry too. But listen, the Cardinals will do it upright on September 6th. I know Walt's family will be there. Tony La Russa will be there. I don't know who will speak on Walt's behalf. I suspect it'll be Tony La Russa, but I'm really, really glad that he's going to be in. I'm really, really happy. It was overdue. But listen, I'm also not going to rip the DeWitts for taking a little longer than they should. I'm just not going to do it because at a time like this, that's kind of cheap shot stuff. I'm just not going to do it. His death, saddens them as well. And, these Hall of Fames, I don't care if it's on the team level or the national level, these Hall of Fames always have things that should have been done and they're not, or this guy should have been voted in, he's not. This guy had to wait. It's just the wrong time to just sort of take gratuitous shots at the Cardinals as a ownership management group. He knew he's going to be honored. He knew he was going to be honored, and it made him really happy. And not to sound corny, but any happiness that a dying man can cling on to is a positive thing. So thanks for letting me say all that stuff.
No, I'm glad you did, Bernie. There was no one, I think you could do it. You're just right up there on the best on things you can say about Mr. Jocketty. And I know a very sad day for Cardinal Nation and for baseball over the weekend. So very glad that he's getting the recognition he deserves. By all means, the definition of a Cardinals Hall of Famer. We will be back with you at some point next week. 2 more episodes to go. I can't believe this is our 40th episode. That's crazy. We just keep getting better with age, Bernie. But I got to figure out something fun for our 50th anniversary, or not anniversary, our 50th episode. Drop me some ideas. And I have some really fun player interviews in the works as well that we'll get out over the next couple of weeks or so. You guys have been very great with your commentary, your feedback from the Lars and Pedro episode, the Miles episode, and it's clear you like the player interviews. So we'll get you more. Until then, though, you know where to find us. I'm on The Athletic. Bernie's everywhere. If you want information, you know where to get it. Let's see, Bernie, tomorrow's Monday, so you have Gas House Gang as well?
You got Gas House Gang. Well, no, Gas House. I got the Redbird Rush Hour tomorrow, and I have Gas House Gang in one form or another 5 days a week, and I do a lot of video and columns for Sports Hub, STL, and what else? Oh, yeah, this thing called Cardinal Territory.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And in case you didn't know, you can also listen to Bernie every Tuesday at noon on KMOX with Ollie Marmol. It's some really great, just talking ball stuff. I really enjoy it. It's must listen TV or radio for me anyway. So hopefully you guys feel the same way about Cardinal Territory. Kind of a long one for you this weekend. Hopefully you don't mind. A good series win for your ball club. Let's see if they can do the same in Cincinnati. For Bernie, I'm Katie Woo. Thanks as always for watching.